Hello, everybody. Welcome to the GM Sports Report, your weekly podcast on all things sports where every play counts. I'm Grant, and I am not here with my co-host Mason as we get ready to cover the latest news, headlines, and upcoming events going on in the sports world. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see all things GM Sports Report. How are you guys all doing today? As you can see, I'm here by myself. My co-host Mason has decided to leave the podcast. I'm halfway stretching that. He's not leaving permanently. He's just gone for the week. He's on vacation. So I just wanted him to enjoy his little break and, not have to worry about this week's episode. So it's just going to be me today. So bear with me. This is my first time doing anything solo. So it might be a little rough, but we're going to give it a go. We're going to start out this episode like how we start out every week, and that's with my hot take for this week. And my hot take is, look, one of the biggest things came out this last week in sports was the MLB All-Star voting, and I think there just needs to be some changes to it. I'm going to go into a bigger deep dive on why I believe this, because I think there were some pretty big snubs this year, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So, we're going to get into a bigger breakdown on that, but I just think some changes need to be made. It doesn't feel like the best players in the league are making the All-Star game right now. And a lot of it feels like the fan voting feels like it's a popularity contest, and then the bench voting feels like they're trying to include everyone for every team, even though some teams are terrible and don't deserve to have an All-Star. But I digress. I'm going to get into that more in a little bit. Now I'm going to be going over my underdog of the week, and this may be a little biased, but I'm going with Michael Busch from the Chicago Cubs. This man was absolutely absurd for the last week, specifically in the Cardinals versus Cubs 4th of July weekend series. Busch went 13 for 23, batted a 565 batting average. Yeah, you heard that correct. And he had 4 home runs and 7 RBIs, and he even had a 3 home run game on the 4th of July. Just an outstanding performance by Michael Busch, and he's been one of the most underrated hitters in baseball. According to Baseball Reference, he is barreling the ball more than 90% of people in the MLB. So he's having a fantastic season. One of the biggest stories as to why the Cubs are having success is because of him. So I thought he deserved a shout out because he does not get talked about enough. All right, so like I said, one of the things I wanted to talk about today is the MLB All-Star Game. The teams are out, the rosters are out. Obviously, there's going to be replacements and stuff like that because of injuries and whatnot. But for the most part, we have our lineups for the All-Star Game. And I can't help to notice that there's some snubs on both sides, but specifically the NL side, there's a lot of snubs. So I'm going to start with the AL and who I believe was a snub in the American League this year. Starting with George Springer. Look, the Blue Jays have caught everyone by surprise, I think, over the past month. They're now first place in the AL East, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. And a lot of this is because of George Springer. He's batted a 281 batting average with 16 home runs and 53 RBIs while playing some really good defense out in that outfield. And like I said, he's helping lead his team to the first place spot in the AL East, which everyone thought was just going to be a guaranteed Yankees first place finish. So he's doing some really good stuff here. And instead, they gave a spot to Julio Rodriguez, who is not having a good year at all. And it just feels like he's in there because of his name. Now, I get the Mariners are having a pretty good year, but that's mainly because of guys like Cal Raleigh and that pitching staff that they have. So I really don't understand why Julio Rodriguez made the All-Star game. I think his OPS starts with a 6. That's not very good for those of you who don't know. I get that Julio Rodriguez is known to have great second halves of the season, but we don't know if he's going to have a great second half of the season. So feels like George Springer got a little bit of disrespect there for not getting the go ahead and Julio Rodriguez making it instead. It seemed like a popularity pick, if you ask me. My next snub for the AL, and really my last one, I feel like the AL was a lot better than the NL as far as snubs go. But the other one I'm going with is Junior Caminero. Now, I get that Jonathan Aranda already made it and Brandon Lowe already made it, so they probably didn't want 3 Tampa Bay Rays players to make the All-Star game. But just like the Blue Jays, the Rays are a huge success story this season. Not a lot of people saw them as a team to win, and I think they're second place in the AL East right now. And a lot of this is because of Junior Caminero, sorry, the 23-year-old. He's got a 255 batting average, 21 home runs, 57 RBIs. and he plays some good defense over there. Having a great year, 21 home runs, really showing off that power. And the person I feel like he could have made it in for is Jazz Chisholm. I mean, I am sorry. I love Jazz. There's no doubt about that. I'm a big Jazz Chisholm fan. I think he's very electric and very exciting. But the dude missed like a month and a half of baseball. And on top of that, I just don't think he's playing at an all-star level. Now, he did have a little bit of a hot streak, which helped him get up to 15 home runs this season, but he's batting 245 and only has 39 RBIs. And on top of that, he's playing some subpar defense. Granted, I know they're putting him in positions that he's not really used to playing right now. I know they got him playing a lot of third base, and I know they're looking to change that come trade deadline, which will be interesting to see if they move him back to second base, which I think their plans are. But I just don't get how he made it in over a guy like Junior Caminero. Even Joe Adell, who's having a great season for the Angels. He's having a fantastic season. I could have seen him making it in over Jazz Chisholm. I just don't really get the Jazz Chisholm making the All-Star game, but that's just me personally. Those are kind of my only two snubs in the AL. I think they did a lot better of a job than the NL did. I think there's a lot more snubs in the NL side. So yeah, those are my AL snubs, and now I'm going to get into my NL snubs, and that is starting with my guy Seiya Suzuki. It baffles me that this man didn't make it into the All-Star game. Seiya's batting a 263 batting average with 25 home runs, 77 RBIs, which is league leading, by the way. He passed Cal Raleigh. And he has 880 OPS. This guy is smashing the baseball right now. He's been a huge part of this Cubs lineup. He's won us so many games, leading the league in RBIs, like I said. So a very valuable hitter with runners on. And I just do not get how he didn't make it into this All-Star game. You look at one of the guys that comes to mind that made it in instead of him was Hunter Goodman, who is on the worst team in baseball, the Colorado Rockies. And he's batting a 277 average with only 16 home runs and only 50 RBIs and an 832 OPS. So all of those are significantly less than what Seiya Suzuki has done this season. And I get, Hunter Goodman doesn't play or isn't a DH, he's a catcher, so that's why he made it in. Well, the bench isn't based off of position, so I'm just going to throw that out there. Seiya Suzuki is the better player, and you could also make the argument that he could have made it in over some of these other guys that I'm going over. The second snub I have is Juan Soto. I mean, how did he not make this All-Star game? One, he has the name. Two, he has the stats to back it up. I can't believe he didn't make it in. Juan Soto this year, he did start out very slow, but since then he's batted 263 with 21 home runs, 51 RBIs, and a 904 OPS. I mean, this guy is insane. Has been his whole career, and I just don't get how he didn't make it in. A guy that comes to mind that he could have made it in over is Kyle Stowers on the Miami Marlins. Again, another team that's not going to go anywhere come playoff time. Batting a 279 this year with 16 home runs, 46 RBIs, and only an 861 OPS compared to Juan Soto's 904 OPS. Look, like I was saying earlier in my hot take, as far as them trying to want to get everyone in the game, like every team wants to be represented sort of thing, I can understand that. But at the same time, when there's players that are clearly better than these players, I feel like that the better player should make it in instead of trying to have every team represented. But that's just me. Juan Soto, like I said, started out this year very slowly. And if you would have asked me a few weeks into the season if I thought he'd make the All-Star game, I would have said no. But especially over this last month, he's really heated up and became one of the best hitters in baseball, like he's known to be on his track record. So I don't get how he didn't make it in. And then another NL snub, Trey Turner. I mean, this guy's leading the NL in hits this season and playing on one of the best teams in the league. He's batting a 299 with 11 home runs, 39 RBIs, and has 22 stolen bases. And like I said, he has the most hits in the NL and the third most hits in the whole MLB. For the life of me, do not know how he didn't make it in. And a guy that comes to mind that, he probably could have made it in over is Brendan Donovan from the St. Louis Cardinals, who's batting a 296 batting average with 7 home runs, 32 RBIs, and only 3 stolen bases and a 2.4 WAR, whereas Trey Turner has a 3.6 WAR, so a pretty big difference there. Again, I feel like they're just trying to get a representative from the Cardinals, so they went with Brendan Donovan. And I just really don't get it when there's players that are clearly better. I don't understand how they don't make it in. Those are some pretty big snubs. Michael Bush, I feel like, was a snub, but that's obviously more the bias side of things. Um, Matt Olson made it in, and I don't know if he's really deserving of making it in. I know he's having a good season, but I don't think it's a great season or anything like that. So I don't really know how he made it in. Maybe we could have seen Michael Bush slide in instead. And speaking of Michael Bush, this just kind of goes to show how a lot of times the better player doesn't make it in just because of name. Michael Bush is not talked about enough. And I just want to compare his stats with the NL starting first baseman and Freddie Freeman. Now, I'm not saying Freddie Freeman doesn't deserve to be started in the All-Star game. I love Freddie Freeman. I think he is probably the best first baseman in the league. So I'm not knocking him, but I think it's very eye-opening when you look at these stats compared side by side. So this is Freddie Freeman versus Michael Bush in a side-by-side comparison. For WAR, wins above replacement, one of the most important stats in baseball, Freddie Freeman is at a 2.0 and Michael Bush is at a 3.4. So Michael Bush wins that category. Games played, Freddie Freeman is at 77. Michael Bush is at 83. Plate appearances, Freddie's at 326. Bush is at 313. So he doesn't have more plate appearances, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. Hits, Freddie Freeman's at 89. Michael Bush is at 81, so Freddie Freeman hasn't beat out on hits by 8. Ooh, big deal. And then here's where it gets interesting. Home runs, Freddie Freeman only has 10. Michael Bush at 18 now. RBIs, Freddie Freeman has 47. Michael Bush is at 56. Stolen bases, not that big of a stat for a guy like Freddie Freeman. He's only at 1. Michael Bush is at 4. Batting average, Freddie Freeman has the edge there with a 308 batting average, and Michael Bush is at a 293 batting average. But you got to take into consideration that Bush has significantly more slug this season. OBP, we got Freddie Freeman at a 377 and Michael Bush at a 377. So they're tied there. Slug, very important stat for a first baseman. We got Freddie Freeman at a 498, which isn't bad. But then you got Michael Bush at a 562 slug. Pretty good numbers right there. We got OPS, Freddie Freeman at an 876. Michael Bush at a 939, so beats him significantly there again. And then OPS plus, we got Freddie Freeman at a 145, and then we got Michael Bush at a 167. So in almost every major category, slug, OBP, OPS, all those stats, Michael Bush is better. Home runs, RBIs, Michael Bush is the better first baseman. And once again, I am not saying that Freddie Freeman should not make the All-Star game. I know that Freddie Freeman is probably the best first baseman, as I've said. I'm just saying that if you're going to do the whole representative thing and there's a player that's clearly this much better than all the other options coming off the bench pretty much, why is that a thing? I don't get it. So that's just my argument there. That's just some food for thought. It'll be interesting to see when, the reserves come, with the injuries and stuff like that, who the replacements are. I would like to think that Seiya Suzuki's first on the list if there's an injury replacement, but you never know. As far as the pitching goes, I think they got that right for the most part. I didn't really see too many snubs there. Was very happy to see my guy Michael Boyd make it in. But yeah, I thought there were some pretty bad snubs on that NL team. And it'll be interesting to see if any changes get made with injuries and stuff like that moving forward. All right, and then the other big thing I wanted to talk about, it's going to be a shorter episode this week. I really only had 2 main talking points for this week. And the other thing I wanted to do was slide into the NBA and talk about the big 3-team trade that happened yesterday. For those of you who don't know, there was a 3-team trade sending Norman Powell to the Miami Heat, John Collins to the Los Angeles Clippers, and Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love to the Utah Jazz. So a pretty big move. All of you guys know that I'm a huge Heat fan, so this is some pretty big news for me. I haven't seen Pat Riley make a trade in 25 years. I'm just kidding, but it feels like that. And I kind of just wanted to break this trade down. So I wanted to start out, what does this mean for the Clippers? Well, the Clippers got a pretty solid 4 in John Collins. I think he's coming off a career year averaging 19 points or something like that with the Jazz. Very solid, still young, so he has room to grow, and he fits in well with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. And I also saw that the Clippers are going to be gunning for a Bradley Beal contract, and that was kind of the reason why they moved off of Norman Powell. So it looks like they're going to make a run at Bradley Beal, and they're going to also make a run at Chris Paul, I saw. So they're trying to build a super team essentially. And I must say, if they do get Beal and they do get Chris Paul, and after trading for John Collins, I think they're the best team in LA. I think they're better than the Lakers, and I think that they're going to instantly become one of the better teams in the West. So I think this is very interesting. And I think everyone should keep their eyes on the Clippers, because if they do pull off some of these moves, I think they're going to be a pretty big powerhouse moving forward. What does this mean for the Jazz? Not much, to be completely honest with you. They have now traded kind of their three younger assets with Sexton and now John Collins. And the other one slipped my mind, but I'm sure I'll be able to think of it. They pretty much got nothing back in return. Especially in this trade, they got Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson. Those two guys were back end bench players for the Miami Heat. They're not even keeping Kevin Love. I'm pretty sure he's getting bought out, which makes sense because I don't know why Kevin Love, who's probably entering the last season or two of his career, would want to play in Utah. And then Kyle Anderson, good solid player, but like he was like the 10th man on the Miami Heat, and he's a little bit older, and I don't think he fits that Jazz team at all if they're trying to rebuild. But I don't really know what they're doing. I feel like they could have gotten a lot more assets out of their guys that they've traded this season, or off season, I mean. Now, finally, this is one I'm going to go into more detail about because it affects me. What does this mean for the Miami Heat? Now, this means a lot of things, if you ask me. One, I think this is a fantastic trade for the Miami Heat. I think they won this trade. You got Norman Powell and only gave away Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love. You pretty much got a fringe all-star player for free. This adds a much, much, much needed scoring punch to the Miami Heat. You lost Duncan Robinson about a week ago, had no shooting on this team, and Norman Powell has statistically been one of the best shooters in basketball for like the last 5 seasons. Coming off a career year, averaging almost 22 points on 45% shooting, 42% shooting from three. So he's really coming off a good year and looks like he's ready to play. I'm super excited to see this fit between him and Hero, because I think that it could be very Splash Brother-esque. I'm not saying that they're going to be Curry and Klay Thompson, but I'm just saying you could see a play style that's like that. And another thing that interests me is I don't think this is Miami's last move. They're now $1.6 million over the tax. And for those of you who don't know, Mickey Arison loves to stay under that tax line. So I'm sure there's going to be other moves made. We still need a backup center desperately. Right now we have Nikola Jovic, who isn't really even a center, as our backup big. So I'd just be on the lookout and see what Miami does. I think this really puts them in the game. I'm not saying they're going to be a top seed, but who's to say they can't make a 5th or 4th seed with how wide open this East is? And if you decide to keep Wiggins now, this starting lineup moves me a little bit. Hero, Powell, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware. That's a pretty good starting lineup. It's got a lot of balance to it. It's got your shooting and your scoring at the guard positions. You got defense at the 3 and 4 with Wiggins and Bam. And you got the young promising Khalil Ware out at the 5. So I really like that lineup. And if they do decide to keep Wiggins, which I'm not 100% sure if they are, I think you're cooking with something. I'm not going to lie. I'm excited to see what this does for the Heat. I was under the influence that they're going to completely go into a rebuild, but it doesn't seem that that's going to be their plan moving forward. I should have known that the Heat never rebuild, so I was pretty stupid for thinking that. And yeah, we'll just see if Miami has anything else up their sleeve. But this definitely puts them back in the game a little bit. I got to give credit when credit's due. So those are really the two topics I really wanted to talk about. Obviously, it's going to be a shorter episode without Mason, but he'll be back next week, and we'll have more to talk about. We'll probably talk about the All-Star game some more, because there'll probably be some replacements coming in. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up this episode. So thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of GM Sports Report, where every play counts. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to be able to see our weekly episodes on all things sports. For additional content, check the description to see links to our Instagram and TikTok. This is Grant signing off for now. Have a great week, everybody.